This is Comic Geek Speak, episode 1731, SHAZAM! Movie review. I'm Shane Kelly.
I'm Ian Levinstein.
I'm Adam Murdo.
And I'm Chris Everett. Shane, that was thrilling.
SHAZAM!
I always think of Homer Simpson in my head, thinking of Pile Shazam!
No lightning bolt, no superpowers. Just be in the comic room. Oh, well.
Enthusiasm, which is just brimming up from all four of us, I'm sure.
All right, folks, this is it, our SHAZAM movie review.
Yes, it is. Well awaited. And I had the pleasure of seeing this a couple weeks before you gentlemen, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, preview.
Yeah. It was, I guess you could call it a preview. Fandango has been doing this a lot lately. They've been doing basically pre-release screenings where for one day they partner with as many movie theaters as they can about 2 weeks before scheduled release.
Actually, that's how I saw Aquaman. Same thing.
Oh, well, there you go.
Wow.
Nice. Yeah. And that's how I saw Shazam about 2-3 weeks ago.
So, Ian, you've been restraining yourself over these last few recordings.
I have, and the only real thing that I let loose was on my Facebook that I have a second favorite DC movie of this era now, and it is Shazam.
All right. Well, since you bravely and valiantly went into the breach before any of us, why don't you start with your initial thoughts, sir?
So, all of the fun that I wanted from a DC movie is finally here. And it is there in leaps and bounds with this story. It definitely takes some liberties, but then again, so did Jeff Johns in his New 52 story, which this very much is almost like carbon copy of. And it's a story that's not all fun and games as well, and that's what I appreciate about it. They give a real depth to the character of Billy Batson that I appreciate, both in the aspect of him being an orphan and with the search for his family. By the way, of course, spoilers because duh. But
yes,
forgot to say those words. And then the friendship that he is almost forced into with Freddy, to the fact that it then becomes a full-fledged friendship, and then, of course, the meeting with the Wizard Shazam and turning into the Big Red Cheese himself. Zachary Levi was made for this role.
Yeah, I would think so too.
Oh my God, the exuberance that just leaps off of the screen every single time that he is there is just mesmerizing to me. And for somebody who's sort of a pinnacle of the geek community in the way that he is, and someone who's been a fan of comic books as long as he has, and a fan of these characters and a fan of everything, to then get a chance to play this character and just it worked. It absolutely worked. Yeah. So I absolutely came out of it thrilled, and I'm already looking forward to a sequel. It was great stuff.
Shane, your thoughts, brother?
I agree. It was a heck of a lot of fun. Everything that I saw in the trailers is what I got out of the movie. I was hoping they weren't going to show the best or the funniest parts in just the trailers and leave the rest of the movie kind of lackluster. And it didn't. I was not disappointed at all, not one iota. There were a couple minor quibbles that we'll discuss as time goes on here tonight, but no, I really enjoyed it. I loved all the casting, all the characters, all the actors. Like Ian said, it takes some liberties, but it makes sense for telling it in a New 52 kind of way. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Brother Murdo?
Well, let me add the crashing thunder of my voice to the fulminations that have already issued forth from my two brother geeks here. It was indeed a lot of fun, and like Ian, I have read the Jeff Johns written SHAZAM backup series from the Justice League series of a couple years back. Shane, did you read those stories as well?
I actually did not. I have them, but I did not read them.
Yeah, I actually bought the trade of those backups stories. So I had it in a convenient, concentrated package that I could pick up off of one of the many piles in my apartment just to prepare myself for the movie-going experience. And Ian is, of course, correct. This did follow Johns' what was basically a film treatment to begin with, I'm pretty sure. That's kind of what Johns does, by and large, for DC these days. He just takes well-known DC characters and writes them. He pares them down to a couple of one or two, he finds an angle on a superhero that he thinks will play well for film, and does what is basically a treatment in comic book form, and that certainly played out very well in Shazam's case, as we've seen. A couple of departures from what he did, some of them very much to the good, some of them very much to the bad, in my opinion. Weren't a whole lot of surprises going in there, and it was the amount of fun it needed to be. It came within approximately 3.7 micro smiles of the amount of fun that I expected going in to see this. I laughed. The characters had a lot of heart. Some of them were actually more fleshed out than the way Johns wrote them. I was especially pleased that Billy Batson his brattiness was toned down a bit, because he was just a straight up unlikable person the way Johns wrote him. The Vasquezes, the adoptive parents, had a little more depth and character to them. Freddie was better. The one major surprise, and it wasn't exactly a pleasant one, was the characterization of Sivana and the Seven Sins, which we'll get to in a bit. But for the most part, it was silly fun. It was big with superheroes. You know, the fact that they are going with that as their high concept was driven home pretty hard, and it worked. And we even got to see like a whole Marvel family, if you will, towards the end, as Johns led us to expect. It's never going to be my favorite adaptation of Captain Marvel, and I realized about halfway through this movie that the only way I was going to get that movie version of Captain Marvel, the kind that I would have really wanted to see, was if it had been made 40 years ago, when stuff like Superman the movie and Flash Gordon and even like Annie were being made, like the 30s and 40s nostalgia. But since that's not to be, this is a very good Shazam movie for the 20-teens, and I hope lots of kids and teenagers went to see it, and if they survive the nightmares that certain scenes might have given them, I hope they'll walk away with a higher opinion of superheroes and the DC Universe and the original Captain Marvel character, because I hope they were impressed by it as much as I was.
Yeah, I mean, I echo everybody's sentiments, and again, you all use the word that brought the movie home for me, which is fun. I went into this film, I don't have Murd's knowledge in Captain Marvel, but I have good general knowledge, and I was like, all right, this movie needs to be fun. If it's too grim and gritty, if it's dark, if it has like a Zack Snyder treatment to it, it's going to fall flat on its face. And I knew within minutes of the film starting that I think they have the right tone here. And I was just sat back in my reclining theater seat and just enjoyed myself. There's a couple quibbles, but overall, and we'll get into that, but overall, I thought they really got to the spirit of the character very effectively. I agree. I really liked how they used the supporting cast, especially Freddie, who I thought was one of the strong points of the whole movie, actually. And it was a thrill to see a version of the Marvel family in the climax of the movie. And one thing I want to talk about as we move along is the post-credit scenes.
Oh,
I really want to know what you guys think is if they can effectively get a 21st century movie audience to accept a caterpillar as a supervillain. So
I sure
it can be done.
So.
We'll talk about that as we move along. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I agree with Ian. It's like the second best next to Wonder Woman film they've done since they've started this this sort of DC cinematic universe.
Yeah.
So
two interesting facts about this movie that I want to point out.
I love tidbits of facts.
So this is now the third superhero movie in a row released with Digimon Hansu in it.
Ha!
Because Digimon Hansu was in Aquaman.
Yep.
He was in Captain Marvel, and now here he is in Shazam as the Wizard.
Yep.
And I thought he was actually really, really well cast. I think he did a very good job with what he was given.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, he's a good actor. But...
He was old and half crazed and slightly menacing, and he was very much like what Johns and Gary Frank did in their backup series. So,
yes.
Yeah, he was very well cast.
And the other thing I wanted to bring up is, later on in the movie this happens, but Adam Brody and DJ Catrona are in this movie playing the Shazammed versions of Freddy and Pedro. They were cast in the never-made George Miller Justice League.
Really?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they were. Adam Brody was going to be the Flash, and DJ Catrona was set to be Superman.
Huh.
So both of these characters, and this was pointed out to me on the Slash Filmcast, I'll give credit where credit is due, that both of these guys finally got to play superheroes after all these years, because that George Miller Justice League came very close to being made, if not for the writer's strike.
Wow.
When was that, Ian?
That was, if memory serves, in the early 2000s, right around the time of the the big writer's strike in Hollywood. And that's what basically stopped that movie from happening. And I can only imagine how different DC's movie slate would be had that version of Justice League been made. And frankly, who knows, we would have even seen Mad Max Fury Road had that movie been made.
That's a good point.
Yep. So
wow.
Go figure on that one.
God, ladies and gentlemen, this is Ian Levinstein, man. Right there in the foxhole with you, man.
Clutch, baby, clutch.
So my first question to you fine feathered folk here is, how did you all respond to is it Levy or Levy?
Levy.
To Levy's interpretation of the character.
Oh, I thought it was great.
I thought it was great as well, and I loved that it sustained itself through the whole movie. That being said, I don't want to see him just be goofy and, quote, immature in subsequent films. I want the wisdom of Solomon to come into play at some point. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be completely serious, but I want him to grow a little bit as time goes on.
Sure.
Yep, you took the magic words right out of my mouth, Shane. That's Wisdom of Solomon does need to kick in sometime. It's probably the one of his powers that he's explored the least so far. And we don't want him to mature too far, because then we'll lose the funniness. But it is true. He needs to mature somewhat. There needs to be some kind of a learning curve here. That could be his arc. Otherwise, we just end up with Deadpool 2.
Or we wind up with SHAZAM.
You're right. But
plus, it makes sense as Billy Batson gets older.
Yeah.
Then he should also gain maturity that way as well. So
definitely.
Yeah, I think I'd chalk up a lot of the goofiness of his behavior in his Shazam form to just being intoxicated with the power.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but he'll get used to that, and that wisdom will kick in eventually. I'm convinced. It'll almost have to, because I'm sure the threat he'll face in the next movie is going to be that much more serious. We've got to see Black Adam at some point.
Oh yeah.
And actually, Mert, I wanted to ask you that question. When they were telling about when he goes to the wizard, and he talks briefly about the history of the power, and is he referencing Black Adam there?
Definitely.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
The first champion who wiped out, nearly conquered the world, and killed all of Shazam's brother and sister magicians. That was Black Adam. Okay. Yeah. Actually, in the Johns and Frank story, Black Adam, he appeared. He was the main villain, and Sivana was in more of a supporting role. They kind of conflated the Sivana role and the Black Adam role into the character of Sivana for the movie.
Now, here's something that I watched. I did not realize until I was reading the credits sitting in the movie theater that Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, had something to do with producing this movie.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
So then there was a few-minute recording that he did thanking everybody who went and saw Shazam over the weekend. And here is what I'm paraphrasing what he said. When they were developing this film, it was with the intent of having Black Adam in it. But to tell the story of both origins to its fullest potential, he talked to Warner Brothers and they decided to split them so that Shazam would come first and then a Black Adam movie, and then you'll have Shazam 2. Okay. That's how I take it. So I do think that there's a possibility you might see Shazam show up either toward the end of a Black Adam movie or in an extra credit scene. But
when you say Shazam, do you mean Billy's alter ego or the old wizard?
Billy's alter ego. Now, you'll see Shazam in the Black Adam movie, the Wizard, as he gets his power and all that.
Right.
But I think once that story's told, you will see Billy Batson's Shazam show up at some point, either in an extra credit scene or in a big battle in present day or something, because you're going to get the whole origin of Black Adam, but that also has to tie to something current as well to bring him present.
You know, and I assume Dwayne Johnson's going to play Black Adam?
Yes.
Oh, he's been attached to the
has he? Okay.
Shazam / Black Adam project for a long time.
He said it's been about 10 years.
Oh,
yep.
Yeah.
Wow. That's what I would have guessed.
Yeah, like basically ever since Man of Steel, he's been attached as Black Adam.
So that's great. I mean, I got real excited about seeing that little video thing, and I thought that was cool. So it sort of makes sense why they did what they did to Savannah, even though that is one of my quibbles, is that he had magical powers, which I did not like. But I can be okay with it fully as long as he doesn't get them again. I don't need to see Savannah be anything more than a mad scientist from here on.
Sure. Yeah. And with him being locked up as well, if they do ever decide to go back to the well of the Justice League, considering that we have had, Deathstroke the Terminator and Lex Luthor introduced, I could then easily see, fitting Savannah in there and Black Adam as part of that crew once we actually get there.
Ian, I totally forgot about that post-Justice League scene.
Yeah.
I've forgotten most of that movie. But
see, now I actually thought that post-credit scene was where he was more Lex Luthor-y than anything he had done before.
And again, not to knock on the movie, Shane, but that was my favorite scene of the entire movie. Was that post-credit scene, because it actually gave me hope for the future. And I who knows where they're going to go with it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, just total sidebar for a minute. I just rewatched Justice League last night. I still like a lot of the movie. It's the Steppenwolf stuff I have problems with, and the Unity and the Apocalypse things. Right. The Justice League itself, I don't have much problem with. But all right.
And actually, no, that dovetails nicely into Shazam, just because there weren't really any moments here where I felt like it was overly CG'd.
No, not at all. I actually got a very, very strong original Christopher Reeve Superman movie vibe out of it, with making you believe he was actually flying in some parts with the practicality of however they filmed it.
Yeah. when he falls into that building.
Well, I was a big fan of when he's trying to stop the bus from falling on top of him.
Yeah.
Yep.
And all the passengers are up against the glass looking at him. And what was great, and Levy's performance was superb, is that you never forgot that he's a 14-year-old kid.
Right.
Like that was evident, and that really is a tip of the hat to his acting, because he had to stay in that mode throughout the entire film. And I thought he really pulled it off. It was a real pleasure to watch that.
Oh yeah, totally believable.
Yeah.
I also thought they gave both adult Shazam and young Billy Batson equal parts throughout the whole movie, so that they both had a good amount of screen time being Billy Batson.
Yeah, definitely. And they gave young Billy Batson a really, I mean, I said it earlier, but a very strong emotional arc.
They did.
I mean, I was almost tearing up in the theater with that scene later on in the movie where he meets his mother again, and you just see that, that there are people like this in the world, unfortunately, that would do that and just
abandon him.
Yeah, completely abandon him, and even essentially saying the words like, "Well, you're with the police, so I figured that you were safe." Like, well, police aren't parents. That's not what they are. They're protectors, sure, but what are you going to do? What's your kid going to do after they're done with the police? They're going to wind up in the foster system like Billy did, and luckily he eventually wound up with a family that loves and respects him and honors him as a child, the way that this combination of people does.
And speaking of the family, the actor who played the foster father, I thought he was outstanding.
Yes,
absolutely.
Like I know that guy. Like the way, the persona he had, and just the way he was dealing with the kids, and sort of he was authoritarian, but in a very easygoing, loving way. And like I really believe, like both of them, but especially him, I really believed in him as a person. I thought his performance was, it wasn't like the dominant part of the movie, but he was so natural in that role. And like when they have all to put their hands into the dinner table, and he was a very believable character.
I don't know if you've ever watched the show *Halt and Catch Fire*, Chris, but
I have not.
But he plays the character Yo-Yo on that, and that's where I knew him from. And he's a supporting character on that, but he's got a lot of that warmth on that show that he definitely brought to the table here with this movie.
I really enjoyed the family, the way they were portrayed, and my heart-wrenching tear-up moment was when Billy did put his hand in first at the end and then said everything around the table. I thought
even made it brilliant.
Yeah, he did. I thought that whole scene was brilliant. I completely expected it, but it was no less impactful when it happened.
Oh, absolutely.
One aspect of the film I really got a kick out of, and I like to think it was a tip of the hat to the history. Throughout the movie, they're struggling with what Shazam should call himself.
Sure.
And viewers that know realize that, well, really he should be called Captain Marvel, but they can't say that. So, throughout the movie, they're trying to, well, what are we going to call you? Like they're trying to figure out, like Freddy keeps coming with all these different ridiculous names for him, and it was. What'd you think of that, Murd?
Well, I was amused by it, particularly Captain Sparkle Fingers.
That's the one I was thinking of too.
Phonetically to what he's supposed to be called. But yeah, and they never completely own the fact that he's calling himself Shazam. The question is still left open, up in the air, and that's a good way to leave it. In fact, I was just looking through my previews catalog earlier tonight, and I looked at some of the Shazam cross-promotional merchandise, the tie-in action figures and such. Billy Batson's alter ego is described as the world's mightiest mortal, almost as much as he is described as Shazam. So even they're kind of toying with the loopholes. Leading the longtime fans hope that maybe somehow, some way, the character's actual historical name might come into play.
I feel like there might have been a meeting at DC Comics along the same lines as the workshopping as to what his name was going to be once they decided that they were no longer going to call him Captain Marvel. Like, Captain Sparklefingers or World's Mightiest Man or Bob, and so they finally just decided to just call him Shazam and call it a day.
So a comic-related question. In the comics now, they're not even calling him Captain Marvel anymore then?
There was one scene in the first issue of the current ongoing series where Billy came this close to saying, "Hey, how about Captain Marvel?" And then he was interrupted by his foster parents calling the family to dinner. So there's a broad wink there. So that has not been decided. The characters have discussed many times the necessity of coming up with names for themselves, but they haven't come up with anything either individually or collectively to call themselves. They're still just like that group of heroes flying around Philadelphia these days. Speaking of which, love the setting of this film. I'm glad they filmed on location in the city of brotherly love. No better place to explore the magic of family.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I agree.
Yep.
Yeah, there's even a tip of the hat to Rocky when they're sitting on the steps. And
yes. Zapping lightning from his hands to the tune of Survivor. Yeah.
Yeah, what was he doing? Lightning hands, lightning hands, lightning hands.
Speaking of which, that's an addition to Captain Marvel's power set that I wasn't sure I was going to like, but let me go on record as saying that I am totally on board with it now. He never had the ability to shoot lightning from his hands before Jeff Johns got his hands on him. But yeah, it makes perfect sense too. I mean, Superman didn't always have heat vision or X-ray vision. It's just a part of the natural evolution of a superhero's power set, and it's one that totally clicks with his mythological background because ever since 1940, he's been said to have the power of Zeus, and what power is more associated with Zeus than casting lightning bolts around?
Sure.
Big thumbs up from the Murd on that power is. Great visual
high
effect.
Praise, ladies and gentlemen, high praise.
Yeah.
Throughout all of the trying to figure out a name, did I miss it or did they never even say the big red cheese?
I don't think they got to that.
I don't think they did.
Okay.
But he did say holy moly more than once.
Yes, he did, which I was thrilled with that.
Unironically, too. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm sure it's a deleted scene somewhere, Shane, because I guarantee you that they probably workshopped at least like 7 or 8 other names that they didn't wind up using in any of those sequences.
That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah. What'd you guys think of John Glover showing up?
Oh, that was great.
Oh, my God, that was brilliant.
He's been pigeonholed as the embittered father of supervillains now.
Yeah, he sure has.
Yeah, he's pretty good at it.
He created Bane and Batman and Robin. Was Lex Luthor's bittered father, and now Savannah's. That was awesome.
Yeah, the scene where he and his corporate border wiped out, that was rather brutal, actually. I was like,
yes,
man.
it was.
Oh.
Yeah, that was one. Yeah, talking about the inspiration of nightmares in the younger viewers. That's one scene they could have either eliminated or toned way down to maybe. I'm not sure this movie even really needed to have a PG-13 rating, to be honest. I mean, I understand that there is some necessity to that just to get teenagers to take it seriously and come to see it. But for the sake of younger filmgoers, I kind of wish that scene and the one where the lady scientist who touched the enchanted door and disintegrated could have been somehow left out.
Oh yeah. I was a little bit surprised by that too, to throw her away so easily.
Well, plus Savannah throws his own brother out the window. I mean,
Well, and that's what after the movie, my younger son said to me something like, "So he just killed his own brother just like that and snapped his finger." I'm like, "Yep, that was it."
So which DC villain did Mark Strong do a better job with, Sinestro or Dr. Savannah?
Well, that's tough because Savannah, the way he was written for this movie, didn't really give him that much to work with. But he wore the threadbare garment he was handed with real style. And Sinestro, kind of the same thing, but I think better written character there, and also the fact that he wasn't able to portray him physically on screen.
Sure.
I think I'd give the edge to Sinestro, actually.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that.
Now, Murd, as the resident historian here for this character in his universe, what did you think about the portrayal of Savannah and how they used him in the film?
Yes, thank you for giving me the opportunity to ascend my soapbox there, Chris. Because, this, as I've mentioned in my opening comments, that this was the one thing that turned me away with issues, just the way that Savannah was handled. I mean, this version of Savannah. There's not much character there, if you know what I'm saying. He's just kind of this soulless, humorless, personality-less murder machine. He's just a generic, world-beating villain type who's at the end of the leash of 7 other even more generic, villainous, extra-dimensional monster types who... their designs were a little bit they were scary, as I guess they needed to be, but didn't in all cases bring across their characteristics. I mean, you could always tell gluttony pretty easily because he was a giant mouth with arms and legs.
Yeah.
But some of the others needed to be a little more specific to the qualities of the sin they're supposed to embody. And just overall, the design skewed a little too close to Gatekeeper and Keymaster from the original Ghostbusters movie.
Zool!
Yes, there is no Savannah, there is only Zool, right? So, yes. So the 7 sins could have been developed a little more. And Savannah, well, he's not... This version of Savannah is pretty two-dimensional. He's not the version that Johns came up with for his Captain Marvel series. Kind of a different approach. He was almost a sympathetic, benevolent character there. just kind of totally diametrically opposed to the film Savannah. He actually had a family that he loved, and his motivation for obsessively seeking out magic and the Rock of Eternity. I mean, that scene where he's reviewing tape of all the interviews with all these people that Shazam has abducted down there to interview them to determine their worthiness to become his new champion. That's taken straight from the comics. Savannah really did do that in that version of the story, but for very different reasons. He was just looking for magic to save his family, whom we have never actually seen yet in the comics, I don't think. He's just mentioned them over and over again. He's convinced that magic is the only way to save them from whatever mysterious disease or ailment has stricken them. Whereas here, he hates his family. He's kind of the opposite number of Billy, who needs to learn the value of family and the magic of family and all of that. Savannah is beyond all hope of learning that. He outright hates family and everything to do with it. First thing he does when he gets his powers is to throw his brother out the window, as Chris said, and allow his father to be torn limb from limb by one of his sin monsters. So there's that. And he's certainly, film Savannah is nowhere near the classic comics interpretation. Now, as Shane pointed out, he's really more power-hungry, would-be tycoon / magician / world conqueror who's never gotten over the childhood slight of being told by the old wizard he's not good enough. So I guess there is kind of a slight connection to the original Savannah there, in that the original Savannah was convinced he was the rightful ruler of the universe and was always coming up with all these crazy super scientific schemes to destroy the big red cheese and achieve that goal. But the thing that makes this Savannah so un-Savannah, more than anything else they did with him, is the fact that he totally lacks a sense of humor. And that, Shane, I think, more than anything else, is why we didn't get the phrase big red cheese in this movie.
No, that could be, yeah.
Savannah didn't have the capacity to joke. And we didn't even hear his trademark laugh. Heh, heh, heh. You know, if they could have at least imparted unto him something approximating a sense of humor, you know, he needed more Gene Hackman in his DNA, and he just didn't have it. Now, Mark Strong played the role with great elegance and all of that, but it absolutely was not Savannah, and that is really disappointing. What it was extremely two-dimensional and needlessly violent. He was more Black Adam than he was Savannah, just to put it where it's at. So, yeah, that was the part of this movie that I think left the most to be desired. Not only because I'm disappointed in Savannah being portrayed the way he was, but also because of the somewhat superfluous gore that probably, put the fear of the sins into some of the younger moviegoers.
Well, I actually took, to piggyback on that, Mert, I took my younger son, Jun, I mean, he's 14, and a couple of his buddies, and I also, my nephew was visiting, and my nephew is 7 years old.
Oh.
I thought, Shazam, he can see that. And he was fine with it, but I remember watching these scenes and going, oh, geez.
Yeah.
But he was riveted. He didn't seem to bother him. But I was a little struck by that too, and I definitely got seems more like a Black Adam type approach to villainy than, thinking back to the wonderful job Bird did in his spotlights on Captain Marvel and going over the Savannah character and so forth. But Mark Strong is a great actor, so it's just a pleasure to see him in the role. But yeah, it was very two-dimensional. But that goes to my next very important question. So in that post-credit scene, how do we feel about a potential Mr. Mind-centered villain piece? And how will an audience accept that?
I don't think they'll have any difficulty with it, Chris. I mean, Mr. Mind is he's a brain parasite. He's going to crawl inside of Savannah's ear and telepathically broadcast instructions to him. So Savannah's just going to be controlled by a different magical monster. This is the second time around. I think that Mr. Mind shrinking down and actually inserting himself through the eustachian tubes right into a human being's frontal lobe is going to be gross enough that the adolescent film-going audience is going to have no difficulty accepting it.
And you know what, Murd? I think we're more than likely going to get more levity out of Savannah in the second movie if he is indeed going to be the one who winds up, controlled by Mr. Mind for the bulk of it. Yeah. Just because I feel like there's really no other way to do that. That there has to be more humor inserted with a character like Mr. Mind involved. I mean, we'll have to wait and see, but the DNA of the director was definitely apparent in the way they chose the villain for this, just because David F. Sandberg is known mainly for his horror movies, and I think that may have may have been the reason why he went that way for the villain, as opposed to something a little bit more levity-wise.
That makes perfect sense. Just like Sam Raimi with Spider-Man.
Sure.
Certain scenes there that are easily explained by his background in horror, too.
Exactly.
And, Ian, I hope you are right about the Savannah Mr. Mind team-up, but I'm kind of envisioning Savannah playing Sorry, that was the Historama was ringing in the background there. I can see Savannah playing straight man to the Worm. If they're going to milk any humor out of his character at this point, I think if anything, it'll be Mr. Mind manipulating his body like a jerky marionette, and the audience gets to laugh at that.
What did we think? Go ahead, Shane. I'm sorry.
I love the way that Mr. Mind sounded when he talked through the voice box.
Right?
That absolutely perfect.
I agree.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. I was thrilled to see the character there at the end, and then they show him very briefly in the beginning too.
Well, and I thought that's all we were going to get was just the beginning. So when you actually got to the point where you hear him talking and they zoom in on him, like, oh my God, this is great.
Well, the two moments where I was like, oh my God, they did the thing, were when we got the Captain Marvel family, because I honestly was not expecting that in this movie.
Neither was I.
It seemed like something that they would have saved for a sequel, and yet they did the thing. And then with that mid-credits scene with Mr. Mind, I'm like, my jaw dropped. I was like, oh, what? Really?
So here's what happened with the Marvel family for me. I'm walking down the toy aisle of Target. I see Shazam toys, and I see Zachary Levi's Shazam figure. I pick it up to look at it, and right behind it is another Marvel family member. And I thought,
store spoiled.
Crap. I said, well, I hope since they made toys, they're not just going to have them in a post-credit scene. I hope they actually do something with them. So then when they had a larger role in the big battle at the end, I was thrilled because I thought I really got just a little spoiled by the toys, but at least they had a purpose then.
What did we think of the costumes? I mean, obviously, first and foremost, Shazam himself, but the whole family. How do you think those came across on the screen?
Spot on. All the way across the board.
The only thing I don't like about them is that they light up like that. That's my problem with the Black Lightning costume on the TV show, is the way it lights up in like a flashlight.
That's just the DC aesthetic these days, though. Everybody's got light up logos on their chests.
Right. Otherwise, it looked perfect.
As I put it to a friend of mine, this is the best Power Rangers movie we've gotten so far.
In form of Megazord, though.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We didn't quite get there, but and again, I mean that in the most positive way. Oh, yeah. Just with like with all the different Marvel member families that we got, and oh my God, I need more Darla in my life. She just lit up the screen both as a child and as an adult.
Yes.
And
I loved when she whispered to Santa, "My name is Darla."
Yes.
Yes, and that Santa, foul-mouthed little jerk that he was, I'm sure, enjoyed that. He's a Philly Santa, after all.
Jeez.
Yeah. I shared Ian and Chris's surprise. I know you had it spoiled for you, Shane, but I was not, like you guys, I was not 100% sure that they were going to go that way. Like Ian, I thought maybe they would save it for the sequel.
Yeah.
But we did get one, and part of that was, credit to the screenwriters here. They seized on the same themes that Jeff Johns shows as his angle for Captain Marvel, which is, how does Captain Marvel differ from Superman? Oh, he's got magic and he has a family. So in that backup series with Gary Frank, he was just hitting us in the head with magic, family, over and over again. Lightning flows through family. Family is what it can be, not it should be. But so we didn't get anything like that to foreshadow their appearance. The closest we got was Shazam saying something about, these thrones are empty. My brothers and sisters are gone away. Fill their thrones. So that was the only thing I had to hold on to there. But then ultimately they did come back around to it, and I'm very glad that they did.
Yeah.
And I thought that they were all very well cast, and sorry to diverge from your opinion here a little bit, Ian, but I think they could have cast a better older Darla. I think she could have been a little more hyperkinetic and a little girlish.
Okay.
But all the other adult Marvel family members were great, especially Adam Brody.
Oh, my God, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Totally digging, especially the sideburns, the Elvis connection put in there, since Freddie Freeman, also known as Captain Marvel Jr., is famously Elvis's favorite comic book character.
Ah.
So, tying it back in there, just just to allow the influence to go both ways. Elvis was influenced by Captain Marvel Jr.'s costume and putting together his stage costumes, and now Elvis has in turn influenced the film version of Freddie Freeman.
And
magnificent.
Very cool.
The smile couldn't be any wider on my face when I saw Adam Brody specifically, just because, again, to have both Zach Levi, potato, in this movie, and Adam Brody, just because Adam Brody played one of the most prevalent nerds on television for years on the OC, to then have him show up here as Captain Marvel Jr. was just a delight, even though, of course, that's not his name. Who knows what his name is?
What was also fun was to watch those actors maintain themselves as kids in the bodies of these adults.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I thought that overall they really pulled that off. And again, as I mentioned earlier in the recording, one of the real highlights for me was watching the kid playing Freddy when he's just in his human form with the crutch and his enthusiasm and his envy and the relationship he forms with Billy. I thought that the chemistry between those two, the two kids, was really well done.
Oh, yeah, I do too.
And I really enjoy the scene, when they're in Fawcett High. Great little tip of the hat to the original company, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And just their chemistry and their developing friendship, and it was really well done. And again, I love the costumes. I loved how they did not skimp out on Captain Marvel's cape. They really got, they could have kind of pushed that aside and had a more generic type of cape, but nope, they had the Captain Marvel cape. And I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, they had a little Greek key trim to the edging of the cape too.
That's right, Merd. Yeah, I did miss the stitching on the boots, but I understand why they wouldn't have that there.
And those big ribbon designs that were on there as well. People call them flowers or propellers or bananas or whatever. C.C. Beck would have objected to their being omitted, but then C.C. Beck would have objected to almost everything. It was just the way he was.
I'm also glad that they didn't include the hood, because I've never really been that big a fan of the hood.
I don't. Yeah, I don't like.
Definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Did you notice the clasps that hold the cape on were tiger heads?
I did.
Yep.
It's funny. The only real reason that the Marvel family is associated with tigers is because C.C. Beck and Otto Binder decided to use the Captain Marvel comics as a backdoor pilot for a comic strip character they were going to try and sell to the syndicates, Mr. Tawny. But there we are. We've got that tiger association. It was also the mascot of Fawcett High, if you noticed.
Yeah, I caught that as well. By the way, doesn't Captain Marvel put the cape over his head a couple times? Isn't there a hood there? I feel like he did.
So.
I mean, there may have been moments where the cape went up a little bit, but I don't remember there being a hood. I mean, forums can go ahead and confirm this for us, but I'm blanking on that right now.
I also loved Mary's costume. I loved how they had the skirt and they looked great. I mean, it was really fun to see all that.
Oh yeah,
yeah, they sure did.
And those actors did look like they were having a good time playing the kids in superpowered adult bodies.
Oh, absolutely. And I'd say that this is one of the first superhero movies in a while where I felt like the third act didn't disappoint. Where there really was nothing for this final act that I could point to that lost me. Wonder Woman is a great movie until that final act,
yes.
where it falls apart. Aquaman, it's good, but it's not great for me. Captain Marvel 2 had was well enough, but it was almost like they just needed to wrap things up. With this, though, I really felt like they stuck the landing a lot. It worked for me really well.
Well, yeah, especially because I couldn't agree more, Ian, because they really want to emphasize at the end that ultimately this is Billy's story, and they want to emphasize that he's going to find a family at the end of that movie.
Yep.
And they really anchored the film, and I thought it made it very effective.
I love that Billy resorted to playground tactics to lure Envy out of Savannah and make him vulnerable and defeatable. That was perfect. That it was Billy as much as his superpowered body that won the victory there.
And I was kind of hoping that it would be Henry Cavill as Superman, but
I was too, but
he was in talks. Yeah. He was in talks, but he was filming Fallout at the time.
Oh, okay.
So and I'm sure that if he had, they would have had to remove his mustache again.
But even so, just having that suit there was still fun enough. Like it was still kind of cool to just show the costume come in without showing a face.
Oh yeah, that was the thrill. Absolutely.
I also laughed very hard when you had Savannah and Shazam in the air, and Savannah's giving his evil man monologue.
Yeah.
And Shazam's going, "I can't hear you. You're like a mile away." And I thought, oh, well, that makes sense. We don't know that they ever really said he had super hearing, but the villain thought he did.
Yeah, in the theater, everybody was howling during that scene.
And when he stamped on the giant keyboard, of course, like
Yeah.
Really hanging a lampshade on the whole big with superpowers.
yeah. I've got some trivia from IMDb I'll throw out there real quick since I just happen to have it opened.
Oh, before you do that, Ian.
Sure.
I wanted to throw out my oh my gosh, they did the thing moments, which might coincide with the trivia you're about to read. So, but first of all, one thing I never thought I'd see in a live-action Shazam movie is the crocodile men from Planetoid.
Yes. Yes.
There they were.
Right.
In the Rock of Eternity. And so Mr. Talkie-Tawny is not out of bounds. Let's just hold on tight. And the other thing was little background Easter egg in the Rock of Eternity. In one scene, I saw the Ibis stick, as wielded by the classic Golden Age Fawcett character, Ibis the Invincible.
Nice. So the two that I was going to point out is that the skate ramp where Shazam is testing out his powers has Arion written on it. And that's the name of an Atlantean sorcerer in the comics.
Huh.
Yep,
yeah.
absolutely.
I missed that.
I didn't miss that too.
Yep. And Billy's father was identified as CC. Yep.
Yeah, I did like that. The kids didn't know why I chuckled at that. I'd explain that later to them, but that was fine.
Yep, that came right from the comics, actually. That's one thing I noticed, and one thing that disappointed me a little bit. In the credits, they gave special thanks to only 3 creators. Gary Frank, one of the Kuberts, I think Andy, and Jerry Ordway. And no Otto Binder, no Nelson Bridwell or Roy Thomas or any of the other people who have steered the Marvel ship over 80 years, but just those 3. And I'm glad they at least gave the props to Jerry Ordway, because they did use, and Johns also used in his take on the character in the comics, a number of concepts that Jerry Ordway put into play in the 90s, including Billy's father's name being CC.
That's right, because they noted the actual creators of Captain Marvel.
Right.
But you're right, Mert. There was no mention of Otto Binder. I noted that as well. That's not right. So
I not that I would have known that, but I did think that the list was short.
Yeah.
When it only had a couple names, I'm like, well, that's kind of weird.
Marvel's always been better about throwing in the special thanks than DC has, and I honestly find that unfortunate in the long run.
Well, it only took nearly 80 years for Bill Finger to get noted as, essentially a co-creator of Batman.
Please.
Yeah.
And mind you, the reason that Marvel does it is also probably due to the fact that the Kirby estate fought as hard as they did. Of course. So that says a lot. They probably just want to cover all their bases and say special thanks to everybody.
Yeah.
Ian, you often have this kind of information at your fingertips. Mm-hmm. How did this movie do financially in its opening weekend?
So it's done pretty well. It made upwards to about $60 million in its opening run, which is pretty decent. $53 million officially. It did make $3 million on that Fandango pre-weekend alone.
Wow!
Which was a very good sign for how it was going to do later on. The thing is that Pet Sematary came out that same weekend, and it managed to get $25 million. So I think that the fact that there were enough people out there looking to go see a Stephen King movie may have deterred a couple of people from seeing it opening weekend. But they're different enough crowds that it probably didn't take too much away.
But it's on track to do well enough for a sequel, then.
As of now, yes, definitely. We'll know for sure after this next weekend. If it continues to, even if it comes in second and it manages to make a decent amount, I think we're okay. Its world numbers right now are at 167 million. And that's only after, again, one weekend out there. It's made 102 million overseas and 64 million domestic.
And I thought I had read that they'd be happy if it hit 145 million. So 160 million, that's good.
that's great. And they got a couple more weeks before they're going to be swept away by the Colossus that's approaching the cinema.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
please. Yeah, I know. They need to get as many people in as possible before then, and I just bought my tickets finally. I was holding out to see where I was going to see it, but I'm actually seeing it in Yonkers here in New York with a couple of friends of mine and on Sunday. So if you do not see me on the internet on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, that's why.
Gotcha. Well, I know where and when I'm seeing it, don't I, Chris?
You damn well right, brother. Murd and I will be seeing it Friday night, and I also have to say that Ryan got me a ticket to see it with him on Thursday night.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
So, Murd, I won't say a word when we go on Friday.
I trust your discretion, Chris.
Yes.
I'm not this.
I have to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Please carry on without me. I'll be right back.
Sure.
I'll be there at the theater with my boys Saturday morning at 8:15.
Ooh, 8:15 a.m.
Absolutely.
Nice.
That is an awesome time. I wish they had 8 o'clock movies all the time.
Well, that's something that I noticed all over the place. Like the Alamo Drafthouse here in Brooklyn, I believe, is starting its first showings at 7 a.m.
Wow.
And they're just going to keep showing it all day long, all day Saturday.
And I mean, 3 hours and 2 minutes, it's got to have an offbeat time to try and get as many showings in as possible.
Yeah, which means, you guess what? You're not seeing any other movie that weekend. because chances are every movie theater is going to be using, I'd say, 3/4 of their theaters, if not all of them, to show Endgame. And don't discount me sneaking in a showing on Thursday either, by the way, because I may not be able to hold myself back. But for now, I'm waiting until Sunday.
When I looked for my tickets, all day Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, just about every showing I looked at was all but full. There were very few that I could find 3 tickets in together, and I was thrilled that an 8:15 showing in the morning was one of them. So I grabbed that one like there was no tomorrow.
Oh, here's something else that was in the Rock of Eternity, Murd, that might catch your interest. There was apparently a burning violin. Does that ring any bells with you?
It does not.
The Captain Marvel villain Ogar.
Oh, Agar, the immortal, right? From the Cult of the Curse serial.
Yep.
Yeah. How was a burning violin associated with him?
So this was a weapon created by the Captain Marvel villain Agar, an immortal being who became evil. He gave the violin to a henchman named Nero, who used it to spew out fire.
Oh,
wow.
Okay. I remember that now. He had a small army of mental patients that he got to agree to join his cult. And most of them thought they were historical figures. So I guess that would have been one of them.
Yep.
Okay, that is a really deep cut.
Now, Adam, Ian, and when Chris gets back,
I'm back from the water closet, gentlemen. I made it out alive.
Huzzah!
Okay, he's back from taking his whiz.
Well played, sir.
What did you all think of how the Rock of Eternity looked itself?
I was thinking one thing the entire time. Ancient spirits of evil, transform this decayed form into Mumra!
Good call, Ian.
Yeah.
I can see that.
The thing I was thinking of, though, eventually, once the kids were running around in it, I thought Goonies.
Yeah.
I totally thought Goonies, yeah.
No, they were definitely going for an 80s aesthetic, Shane. More than anything else. Yeah.
They seem to be doing that with a lot of their movies lately. I was talking with Big Jim a couple of weeks ago about the Aquaman movie and how it was such a mishmash of elements of different beloved 80s films.
I'm okay with that. I absolutely would go back and live in the 80s in a heartbeat.
Didn't say it was a bad thing, just making the observation.
Speaking of the 80s, just to wallow in it for a moment, while I was doing some schoolwork earlier here in my office, I went on Amazon and Prime to put on a movie in the background, and God damn it, they added Red Dawn. I had to put it on immediately.
Oh, wow. I haven't seen that in a while.
Such a totally ludicrous film, but I can't turn away.
I loved the scene where they go to the bodega, where they go to the not 7-Eleven or the gas station or whatever you want to call it, and they go and get the beer, and they stop the robbery and what have you.
Great.
One sip of beer and they immediately spit it out, and then there goes the root beer.
Yeah,
and of course the Gentleman's Club.
Oh, yes.
Oh my God, that was hilarious.
Yeah.
Why can't I see? When they revisit the Gentleman's Club, covering Darla's eyes. Why can't I see? Oh.
Yes, Ian, as a non-beer drinker, I really enjoyed that scene also.
Well, as a beer drinker, I'm sure they were, pardon my French, I'm sure they were drinking shit. So,
Well, naturally. Convenience store beer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or how about when he asked the thugs to shoot him in the face just to... That was also very entertaining.
Okay, so that part, and then when they were testing his powers, put him in a box and lit him on fire, those two parts made me a little bit nervous. Because I can easily see younger kids contemplating that in this day and age. I hope not, but like you think about things back in the 80s with like Back to the Future, where the time machine was going to originally thought to be a refrigerator or a freezer, and they didn't want kids locking themselves in there playing it, so they made it something they could never have access to, which was a DeLorean. When I saw that, I thought the same thing. Not that you should. I mean, I certainly watched Bugs Bunny cartoons and never dropped anvils on anybody. However, I have to say that watching that, I was a tiny bit bothered by both of those scenes at those precise moments. Going, ooh, okay. We're putting somebody in a box and setting them on fire. I don't know if I'd done that.
Freddie could have come on camera and said something like, "Hey, kids, don't try this at home," because they were recording this for release to the internet after all.
He did have that on the sheet of paper, I think, that he held up in front, done by a superhero. Don't try this at home.
Okay, there's the disclaimer.
But I was surprised. It was great for the scenes. I was just surprised.
See, Shane, you shame me now because I totally lost my bearings as a parent because I thoroughly enjoyed those scenes.
Oh, I did too. But part of me just kind of looked over at my kids going, oh, thank God, they better know better because...
I'm sure they know better.
They're all old enough by now. Yeah. But on that note, though, Chris and Shane, what did your sons think about Shazam?
Okay, so I'm sure if they would ever listen to this as time goes on and I am far departed from this earth, they're watching it, and they're laughing, and they're smiling, and they're enjoying it. And we get to the end, I go, what do you think? And they go, eh. I could have wrung their neck. I'm like, I know you liked it more than that. You laughed at it. My younger one tried to justify it a little bit and said, well, it can be funny, but it doesn't mean I like it completely. All right, well, jeez. No, I think you liked it, and I'm pretty sure you liked it more than you're letting on. But they did seem to enjoy it quite a bit.
Have they reached the age where they can't let themselves enjoy anything they experience with their dad? Is that what's going on?
I guess possibly a little bit, but not entirely, because they were both excited to see it. And again, they both thoroughly laughed and enjoyed it. They don't do that with other things, so I don't know. Maybe.
So I took, Jun, who's 14, and also one of his buddies, and his buddy's younger brother is 12, and all nice kids. And Jun has actually some experience with Captain Marvel because he's read more than once and enjoyed Jeff Smith's Monster Society of Evil graphic novel.
Ooh. Oh, excellent.
So he had some knowledge of Captain Marvel going in. And like you, Shane, that they were laughing throughout a lot of the movie. And I asked him afterwards, you like it? He said, yeah, I liked it. He said, but he said the one part of the movie that surprisingly kind of lost it for him was he wasn't a big fan of the way the Marvel family was portrayed. Interestingly enough.
Which does kind of make sense for a more old school portrayal.
Sure.
I like the way the classic Marvel family looks more than the colorful outfits of this one. I like traditional red and Captain Marvel Jr.'s blue, but this is okay too because I knew they were going to go for this if they were going to do it because of the way current continuity is.
Right.
And actually, I have a question because, again, I'm not as well versed in this character's universe. I mean, I know about Mary Marvel. I know about Captain Marvel Jr. Are those other characters from the comic?
They're from Jeff Johns' comic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I knew they weren't from the Golden Age, right, Mert?
No.
No. They're I guess you could say they're loosely, very, 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 very loosely, just on the basic concept level, based on the Lieutenant Marvels, who are like three kids who just happen to have the name Billy Batson, and in one of the sillier Golden Age stories, gained the ability to become Marvels themselves by yelling the word Shazam in unison with the main Billy Batson. So there were other Marvels in the Marvel family, but they were nothing like Pedro, Eugene, and Darla. Although Darla's surname is Dudley, and there is a provenance for that in
I didn't realize that was. I did not realize that was her surname.
And we should remind our listeners that Mert has done a wonderful series of spotlights on the Golden Age history of Captain Marvel, which are in our archive. So, please check those out.
Oh, yes, please do. And then thank you for the commercial there, Chris.
You bet.
Yes, and those series will continue. There will be some Bronze Age goodness coming your way before too much longer.
And I would also like to thank you in person, Murd, for 10 years of the Time Bubble.
Oh,
Yes.
You're welcome, Ian. Hardly seems like 10 minutes to a traveler of the time continuum such as myself, but...
I'll throw out an oh boy there just because we're talking about time travel.
oh, I love that show.
Yeah, I got one more tidbit for you. So the security guard at their school.
Okay.
Did you catch what his last name was?
Yeah, the Moran that they called Moron.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, which is Miracle Man or Marvel Man's last name, as in Mickey Moran.
Yep.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
I didn't realize that.
Oh.
Nice subtle dig
that.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, other credit catches. There is a character named Bill Parker in the credits. So that's a shout out to one of the Captain's creators, and also one of the kid's schoolmates is named Sissy Summerly, mentioned in the credits, and that's the name of Billy Batson's occasional girlfriend and Mr. Sterling Morris's niece from the old Golden Age comics.
Huh.
Yes, which is another thing we didn't see here. I'm wondering if maybe Sterling Morris and Whiz Media might show up in future installments.
I'm guessing, and I would laugh hysterically if it's some sort of podcast.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, that would make sense these days.
Do you gentlemen think they're going to have other DC heroes appear in his future if he has a future film?
It wouldn't surprise me.
Because they were still hitting over the head with the fact that this is in the DC movie universe, because they mentioned Batman, Superman appears.
Right.
They make a joke about Aquaman in one of the post credit scenes. So
The only thing I thought odd about that was in the store he's throwing tall Batman dolls at Savannah.
Get him, Batman!
Yeah, and I thought, well, that's a little bit odd, but I appreciated everything else about mentioning the heroes throughout the movie.
Do you think that was Kevin Conroy's voice saying it? I don't. It sounded a lot like it, but it could have just been a generic.
Yeah, it did sound a lot like it, but I don't know.
I'm guessing generic voiceover guy.
Probably. Yeah. Would have been a nice nod.
It would have.
because I could totally see Jason Momoa having a great time as Aquaman teaming up with Shazam.
Oh my god!
I have thought he was showing up in the second extra credit scene.
And how about we just team up both red heroes with lightning on their chest and just have Shazam and the Flash show up?
That'd be fun too.
Yeah,
Sure would.
Because what was that actor's name? Ezra
Miller.
Yeah, I liked his Flash in the Justice League film.
Yeah,
I did, but I don't think he's attached to it anymore.
I'm not sure about that. I know that they've been reworking a script, but I'll have to double check to see whether or not he's gone too.
Yeah, please do. I thought I saw a news article saying he was gone, but I was kind of hoping not, because I wouldn't mind if all of those actors got another chance at a Justice League movie, because I thought all of them did just fine.
I agree. Yep.
So as of March, there were reports that he was supposedly writing the Flash movie, but then later on in March, there was also a report saying that he was done. So I have no idea, and I don't think we will either unless we actually officially hear that there's going to be a Flash movie happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the next DC film is going to be the Wonder Woman sequel, correct?
Is it Birds of Prey or Joker?
Oh, actually, yeah. I think. Well,
Joker's due in October.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah. And you know what? Might as well bring that up real quick since we are talking movies. I really strangely enjoyed that trailer, and I'm not sure if it's just the fact that I know that it was filmed heavily in my neck of the woods, and I passed by a train that was parked on the F train at one point. for the Gotham Transit Authority. Basically they parked an old 80s MTA train at a station, I think 18th Avenue, as I was passing by it on another train, and I saw them actually in production.
Wow.
So I know that they filmed it heavily in New York City, so maybe I'm skewed, but the style is fascinating me, and I think that as a standalone it may actually be good, but I'm also wary.
I think it looked very well produced and very much like a fantastic independent film.
Yeah.
And I think it may be an interesting flick, but I don't know that I care to have it be a DC Joker film. I don't know. It almost looked like it was just going to be a crazy villainous film, and that's fine. If it's a good film, it's a good film. I just don't know where the whole it's the Joker tying into the rest of any DC universe, Batman aside, because I don't necessarily want him to just show up either.
Yeah.
I'm very skeptical about it. I don't know that I care at this point to go see it in the movie theater, but I'll see as time marches on.
I'll definitely go see it. I mean, I'm a huge Joaquin Phoenix fan. I think he's a great actor, and so I'm interested to see how he interprets the character. I mean, the scenes where they have him like contorting his body, and and it almost seemed like, again, we're just going by these quick snapshots in the trailer, but
yeah, and it wasn't much at all. No,
but almost like are they going to try to kind of humanize him going into becoming the Joker, and more of a sympathetic type character. The makeup. What's that, Mert? I'm sorry.
That is what worries me.
Go ahead. What do you mean?
Oh, just the what you said about attempting to render sympathetic the Joker's character, humanize him a little too much. That is not something I really want to see for most villains, really, and especially not the Joker.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a fair point, because I mean, the Joker, when he's fully in that mode, is a horrifying villain. So.
And plus, right now, we've had a lot of Jokers between Jared Leto's Joker. We had Heath Ledger's a few years ago. We've got the ones on all various cartoons. Now we've got Joaquin Phoenix, but we also had what was on Gotham and is going to be on Gotham. Like, there's a lot of Jokers around right now.
And I feel like if they're going to continue in this direction and have standalone movies that have nothing to do with their overall universe, which again I'm 100% okay with, because frankly I think that a loose universe is working very well for them. Since this one's literally going to have nothing to do with anything else that they're doing, they might have to just have a sub film division called Elseworlds.
I like it.
Yeah.
And just place these there, because apparently also this Batman movie, this solo Batman movie, may have nothing to do with what's currently happening, because they're talking about maybe setting it in the 90s, and there's all these other weird reports coming out of it that it may just be a solo thing.
And if they've still got any ideas about universe building at Warner/DC, I think that's an excellent idea you've just had there, Ian.
Yeah.
Just they can let these filmmakers pursue their visions of the characters without muddying up whatever larger overarching plans may exist.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of, going back to the Joker trailer, because they kind of show at the end, of the makeup they had for him?
I do not like the red nose. That is never a part of Joker's look.
I don't either.
That took me out of it a bit as well. I was like, wait a minute, is that a red nose?
Yeah. Literally everything else about it I'm fine with. The red nose is a little bit jarring. And I also know that I'm going to have to, because I've never seen it, watch The King of Comedy before this movie comes out.
Oh, that's a classic. Oh.
Yeah. Because I know that De Niro's character in this Joker movie is definitely taking cues from that, plus the movie overall seems to be taking cues from that.
King of Comedy, it's Martin Scorsese, so that's just to tell you something right there. But that is a great movie.
Yeah.
Oh,
I've seen a few comparisons online also to another De Niro Scorsese movie, Taxi Driver.
Yeah, as have I.
Okay.
Yeah, setting it in New York would do that as well.
When is this Birds of Prey movie supposed to be coming out too?
So I have the slate up here, Shane. Birds of Prey is scheduled for February 2nd, 2020.
Okay.
Then Wonder Woman 84 is June 5th, 2020. So they've really pushed that back.
Oh, yeah.
because that was originally supposed to be coming out this year.
Because that movie's been shot, hasn't it?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah,
it is. It's in post production right now, so it's and mind you, Birds of Prey is still filming, and yet that's coming out before Wonder Woman 84. So I don't know what their thoughts are on that. The solo Batman project is and this is going to have to be no, actually, never mind. Is coming out a year later, so they're literally going to have nothing until 2021 after Wonder Woman 84, as of now. And then The Suicide Squad is the working title for James Gunn's complete, remake of The Suicide Squad and doing whatever he wants with that. And then tentatively a Flash movie, which if John Francis Daley is still attached, I would like to see because he's the man who co-wrote Spider-Man Homecoming.
Okay.
And he's also from Freaks and Geeks and from Bones and a bunch of other things. And he was excellent at that. And then Aquaman 2 is, as of now, scheduled for December 16th of 2022.
Because didn't Aquaman make about $1 billion?
It sure did, so that's definitely still happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, it wouldn't shock me if that gets moved up a little bit.
I was wondering that, too.
Yeah.
Well, I'm rooting for DC. I hope we continue to see, solid films coming out of that universe.
And see, I know we talked down about some of the previous ones. I still applaud them for trying a team-up movie and then a team movie and then single movies rather than just trying to follow suit with single team.
Right.
I really did like the idea of a team-up movie in Batman and Superman and a Justice League movie after that.
To be as polite as possible, Shane, it was a valiant effort. Because again, I have very strong opinions about Batman v Superman and Justice League a little bit less so, just because there are a lot more redeeming moments that for me than Batman v Superman. But I completely understand why people like it, and it's the same reason why I dislike Man of Steel as well. It's just it's not my type of movie. But then again, if everybody liked everything, there wouldn't be opinions.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Ian, well said.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always said that I actually am a big fan of Man of Steel until the disaster porn at the end.
Matt always says the same thing.
Yeah, but up to that, I totally dig that film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like a lot about it now. When I first saw it in the theater, I actually saw it with my older boy back then, and we left and both kind of looked at each other and go, I don't know that I like that too much. Then as I've watched it, I like more of it, but I agree that the end really got away from it.
Yeah. If it was a little bit brighter and it was a little bit more hopeful, then I would have appreciated Man of Steel significantly more. Instead, it just devolved for me into something akin to the type of fight that you see in Dragon Ball Z, where it was just a bunch of people just punching each other for the sake of punching, and then the whole story went to the rails after that. But again, your mileage may vary, and I'm sure it does. You
know what? There was one I'm thinking because I haven't watched the movie in a while, but during that interminable fight sequence, the one moment that really got me though, as I think about it, where I really felt like, wow, this is Superman, is when he's like lifting up. I don't know if I remember if it's the ship or like the music's crescending.
Yeah.
And at that moment, I'm like, wow, like this is Superman. Like you see him using all of his power to do something that's going to basically save the planet.
Yep.
And I thought that scene was really powerful.
Yeah.
But it was bookended by just wholesale destruction on such a.
And that's something that I just love about this particular movie here that we've been talking about, Shazam, is that going back to my initial statement about the third act really landing, is that with the fights with the final fight scene and everything, it feels like there's a significant crescendo to the movie, and that it all makes sense with the characters that have been developed up until now, and that's what makes this movie work so well for me.
Well, the writing was excellent in the sense that they really captured just the essential personalities of each member of the Marvel family, of their foster parents, and you got a sense of their dynamic and who they all were, and that which made them become the Marvel family all the more satisfying in the latter part of the film. So the movie, I mean, this movie was really outstanding.
Yeah.
As I think about it more and more, like the writing is really spot on in that movie.
Yep.
And there's not like really any wasted scenes for the most part. I mean, yeah, I was a little taken out of it, but like Savannah, like throwing his brother out the window and that whole thing was like, whoa. But, minor quibble, but the movie, like they did this movie right. Like they really understood the essence of the character and the spirit was there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And there are very few movies that I've seen in recent memory where I left the theater just feeling happy as much as I did with this one. And
that's the way you should feel with a Captain Marvel film.
Absolutely. Yep. Jiminy Jillikers.
Any other thoughts, gentlemen?
I think that's just about it. I think my lightning bolt has been shot.
Yeah.
Oh, Ian! Wow, that gave me chills.
I'm good as well.
How about you, Mert? Any closing thoughts?
No, I went away feeling satisfied. I mean, again, I'm not as difficult to satisfy as C.C. Beck would be if you were still with us. Even somebody who, like me, has such an affinity for the older stories of the original Captain Marvel, I went away feeling like this was a good treatment of the character and his family for the current decade and the current century. And I feel optimistic that we'll like future installments even more.
Yep.
Hear, hear.
Agreed.
So, fracking swears, gentlemen. Chris, how many?
4.5.
Murd?
I gave it a 4. A Savannah with a sense of humor might have netted it a full 5.
And Shane?
Yeah, I'll go a 4.5.
Yeah, for me, it's a solid 4.5. I want to see this at least 2 or 3 more times. If not in the theater, then I'm definitely getting it on Blu-ray and watching it a bunch. Hear, hear.
Hear, hear, indeed.
Yep.
So, time to extinguish the brazier and leave the temple.
and the next movie on the slate is Endgame.
Yeah. Yeah. That's gonna be something to be seen.
And let's do a little advertising here because I think Ian, this might have been either this was your idea or it might have been another listener's idea. Mm-hmm. We got to do a top 5 MCU movies.
Yeah.
After Endgame.
Yeah,
that's getting hard now.
I think that was a listener actually, if I remember correctly.
I believe it was. I apologize, I don't remember who it was. I think it was on the forums, but it's a great suggestion. And damn it, we're going to do it because after 22 films?
It'll be 22. Yeah.
That's going to be a hell of a fun top 5.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, with varying opinions, just because I know you gentlemen so well at this point. And
indeed,
that's what matters most with these lists. Alrighty. So, Shane, you want to go ahead and finish us up?
Ready, willing, and able.
All right.
Visit us at comicgeekspeak.com. To send us an email, the address is comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. To leave a voicemail, the number is 267-702-6642. Stop by thecomicforums.vanillacommunity.com and let us know what you all think of SHAZAM. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. Thanks to everyone who contributes to the show, sends in Muddle the Merd. We appreciate it. And as always, we are uniting the world's mightiest heroes, one listener at a time.
And now we've reviewed both Captains Marvel.
Yes.